There's a similar attitude or a common attitude of the three of you, towards how we look at the present in order to think about the future. That's pretty clear. But then there's different ways of approaching how we design, how we do things, how we maybe think about it, and how we use the different tools. For example, when Martha was showing that huge car factory, that heat wave area, and how that could have a certain design approach and how it could be transformed, I was thinking that probably with the tools that you are kind of using and developing and so on, a different approach would, or a different design, a different result would come up. So the design, even if it is using data, if it is using all the information that we have, still is in our hands on how to use it in order to reach different results and to still kind of have certain identities in the different cities or villages in which we live. The other thing is that at a certain point there was this issue of constraints from regulations, and that coming because sometimes us as architects were not there at the very beginning when these regulations are set, where urban planning kind of is debated or discussed, and probably architects, designers should have a stronger thing to say there, in order to probably use some of these tools as well and start from the very beginning to see which is kind of the best way to proceed. So I would like to ask you about this kind of moment in which we kind of enter the kind of conversation with the decision makers, with those that plan.
I was given the mic, so would it be okay if I will continue in English so my speakers would understand me? Well, the legislation is the biggest pain for us architects in Poland, I would say, honestly. And in any occasion, we try to push it also with our forces. I mean, showing our designs, showing the examples. Even yesterday, I had the chance to speak with the ministers. And once I told something like that legislation should be ahead of the changes that we estimate that will come, right? And everybody smiled. Legislation ahead, right? It's always behind, and that's a big pain. And even with the car factory, on the break, I was telling to Marta that the Heritage Department thinks about leaving those big factory buildings because it's a legacy, technical legacy. And actually, we, with our sensitivity and really we love construction and structure and so on, we also think that it's worth preserving some, but with thinking about the future of the place, not only about the past. And what we can do as architects is to push the boundaries. And as you said, if we don't try, nothing would happen. So such meetings, and we have meetings organized by associations, but it's important that we not only speak among architects, passionate, very skilled professionals, but also to share these thoughts to the society. And what we lack in Poland, from the perspective of Poland, of course, I can say, is the education on the very early level. So the kids would understand how the space around them works and what values can be hidden or not hidden in the space, right? And that also this space affects our behavior, and so on, right? Different conversation. So the situation is not perfect, but if we don't do anything, nothing would change, right?
I think what is very important is that legislation is conservative. It would always lag behind. But we should actually talk to legislation to get so-called city labs, that we have test areas where we are allowed to try things out so that we see if it works. There is no point in sort of throwing all the ideas into one basket. We should, in very specific places, try things out and should evaluate very quickly to see whether it's worth doing it or not. And we should do lots of different tests in big cities so that we actually get recognition very fast. And that you keep some of the old structure, I think, is perfectly right, because you said it before, without past there is no future. The past has to be part of our future. That's very important.
I maybe have a practical example, like maybe on a smaller scale, where maybe these legislative boundaries also can make creative. Like when I showed the school building that we did in Leipzig, it is built as a temporary building, because like a building permission takes a long time. Yeah. And what we did is actually all of these parts are certified by the TÜV. So you can have a temporary building. So in Germany you only need like a Aufstellungsgenehmigung. I don't know what like an assembly allowance, so to say, which takes around a week, I would say. So we handed in this building as a temporary building and put it in operation, and like the construction time took like less 1.5 weeks or something like this for a 100 square meter 2-story building. And then we handed in the building permission afterwards. And now we got a building permission for a longer time, yeah, for like a permanent building. So we used the loophole in the German law to actually put the building in operation in just like from planning stage to being there. Like it was just a couple of months in the end of the day. So I think that it's like also maybe in our name with the beta mode and everything. Yeah, so there's creative ways sometimes to get around it. And that's also sometimes what we're trying to find, because sometimes things do not make necessarily sense for the times we are in right now. And then you have to get creative.
And I also have to say, not everybody in authorities is a difficult person. A lot of the people in authorities actually want to support. They are keen to do progressive things, and they know about their limits and restrictions, and they often even point out ways of how it can be actually done, where the loopholes are, and how best to approach it. So, authorities can also have their contribution in that, despite the fact that they are slow systems.
Marvin, in your case, I was also kind of thinking about working or using your tools with what exists, so what's already there. We've seen several examples, of kind of groundbreaking works. Have you also used those kind of tools that you are creating on heritage and also kind of existing places and existing neighborhoods?
We did a project in Kiel in the north of Germany. It's already, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or something like that. And this was all about, there's like a relatively big function, like monofunctional area, like of old industrial buildings. Like it's around where the university is. And there we did kind of a revitalization concept with also like how we use kind of like a structural approach, but also like a scalable approach of scalable architecture, how to revitalize old industrial yards in the end of the day, but without tearing down the structure, but using the structure as a second skin. So it was kind of a house in a house concept, so to say. But then you could also because then your inner facade doesn't have to have all of the properties that you would need when you build something new, let's say. Yeah, so you use all the existing structure for that already. So I thought that was quite successful, but we're still waiting for further development. There's a big master plan there. But in general, I think just revitalization. That's that will be the 90% of our work in the future in the end of the day at some point.
Or it's pretty much already going towards that right now as well. And another topic that came up, it's time, no? Going fast with things. And you were kind of supporting, no? How it's possible to do things in a very short period, but we also have seen how we also need time to develop other strategies to build our cities. How important would kind of immediateness, let's say, be when you design, or also in your cases when you are thinking about solutions or providing kind of change within a certain system that you're working with?
I would prefer to say just in time than fast or quick, right? Because again, you need to balance, and it depends on the conditions, etc. Sometimes, of course, time is money, and dealing with all the circumstances right now, lack of work power, etc. We look for new ways of building, rising buildings, right? And I think that still revolution is ahead of us, because we have the solutions for small units, single-family housings, but in parallel, we know that densifying our cities is a crucial issue. And I think it was in your presentation that for cities we would need bigger printers, and we still don't have them. So I would say we are still waiting for the revolution, but even within our possibilities right now, we can always find the smartest way to do it in the certain area with certain possibilities, a certain also budget, right? And more and more often we are asked to design to the budget, not only our fantasy and knowledge about everything, but also the budget. Yes.
Budget constraints are, of course, a big challenge. But what I often see as well is that where there are budget constraints, the inspiration in a way sparks off, and we are finding other solutions, and sometimes even more interesting and better solutions. So
you need to be creative, as you said in the registration.
Budget isn't always the thing, you know. It's maybe one more complexity that we need, but this complexity sometimes also helps to get our brains working.
I agree.
There's always this triangle. You can have it cheap, or you can have it fast, or you can have it in a high quality, and you can only choose two of them. But I think I never really believed in that, to be honest. Like, because we're always. That's why we work so much with new technologies, and we are also children of digitalization in the end of the day. And I really think that, like, also with new technologies, you create new ways. It's in our case, for example, designing and planning, and at the moment we're quite figuring out how AI plays a role in this process, and we're writing a lot of custom software in-house at the moment to automate certain processes, because I do believe in some cases you can have these things actually, but it's a way how to approach them. If we approach them like we always approach them, then you can only have two or three. Okay.
I would also like to add that sometimes there are circumstances that demands the urgent action, and we faced such situation 2 years ago in Poland. I don't know if it was so strong in Germany when the war started in Ukraine, and Poland faced a lot of refugees coming to our country. And together with the Warsaw branch of the Association of Polish Architects, we were hosting Shigeru Ban for one of his lectures. And perhaps you know that Shigeru Ban provides systems for such urgent assistance for refugees. And what I learned from him is that this help for the refugees divides into certain times, right? This is the time for the urgent action, and such printed houses would fit just perfect, because you need to treat those people with or you need to give them good conditions of living temporarily, but later on you need to provide them a way for normal existing, I would say, work, right? So they can really accommodate in the new society. And if this happens, this is a success of the process. So such urgent actions, quick solutions should not last forever.
So I think that the three of you, you take risks in working, and when you're taking risks, you can be successful, and that means that you can make big steps forward, and then when you make mistakes, we can also make improvement out of that. And that's why I'm sure that there needs to be questions from our audience to share with them before we finish the conversation. Over there, there's one. Over there, there. Okay.
That better. What I'm listening to. Oh, okay. Okay. So when I listened to all of you, it was very good to hear that, very inspiring. But at the end, I'm worried about what's going on with the energy to produce those houses. For example, with the 3D printer. The 3D printer uses some energy, and when you're talking to government people from legislation, like, do you need to actually think about that and prepare some kind of solution for this? Like, everyone is talking now. Let's be think about the ecology, and let's get the electrical cars. Let's have it, okay, but what's going to happen with the batteries? So we want to have plants on the rooftop, but we have to maintain it somehow. So are you I'm sure you're thinking about it, but is it an important matter when you're trying to get the projects through when it comes to thinking about the energy that we need to accumulate it somewhere, like get it from somewhere, and it costs money.
Of course, the energy efficiency was, I would say, the first parameter that we've learned we need to cherish. I mean, thinking about ecology starts with energy efficiency. What we learn now is not to waste any energy. And we learn that even the heat from sewage we can use to heat our water in our sink, for example. Yeah. So this is thinking about the circularity of energy in our buildings, in our cities, and making, I would say, organisms that support each other. So this is available, feasible in technical way. Sometimes it needs some skills to get the permit to build such of a solution. But also in the government level, I would prefer, of course, the politics to say it. But I know they are thinking about solutions for the future, and there is an aim that Poland would gain its energy in 50% from OZE in Polish. So from wind and other renewable sources, right? By 2030. So it's not that long time to achieve this 50% of renewable energy sources in Poland. It's not that much as in Germany, but you need to know also that the energy system in whole Europe is interconnected. So countries sell energy to each other, and we also can sign as a government an agreement with Germany, so they could share more greener energy with us. So these are big data and big challenges also for the governments.
What about the places? I could see in Warsaw that there are some areas that changed. I used to see more green areas, and now I see some low apartment buildings. There used to be, as far as I knew, the kind of like the air corridors that go through. And now I'm thinking that I'm actually worried that it goes the wrong way. That in some way, okay, the buildings are different, more modern. There's in some way you could see that there's more green areas, but sometimes I'm thinking there were more, and
more and more,
more and more.
And where is the limit? As
Exactly.
you saw on my, I will answer this because it's about Warsaw. I
But also,
for questions also for my colleagues.
But also, I'm sorry for the interruption, but I'm also curious how it is in like other cities, because I know Warsaw, but how is it also in your cities? Are these areas disappearing?
I would only conclude that, as you saw, it's a growing trend that everybody moves to the cities because work is here. And it's finding the balance. And in Poland, sustainable development, it's zrównoważony rozwój. So it's still development, but in a smart way. We need places to live. We need places to work. So what we can do with all the knowledge we have is to minimize the negative impact on the environment. And this is what we are trying to do.
And I don't know exactly which places you're talking about, but what is also important, besides all the plants that we need, that's why I'm proposing to put them on roofs and facades when green spaces get built on. We need urban density, because the denser we can create the cities, admittedly, it also creates issues that need to be looked at, but we concentrate the living quarters, reduce mobility needs with that, and therefore are much more effective. And infrastructure. So there is a big thing about creating density for much more effectiveness. But it comes, of course, with social challenges, and they need to be looked at. It comes with green spaces. You can't just endlessly condense the city. It all comes with the right sort of measures and proportions, of course.
All right.
Maybe there were so many layers. I want just to go back to the beginning, to the first point, which was about just energy consumption in the end of the day.
Yes.
And, to be honest, I cannot speak for the 3D printing companies, since this is not our company, but I can speak for our company and the timber systems we're doing. What are we actually achieving with this? We achieve that we get high precision, pre-manufactured in safe environments. We do less errors on construction site. We build faster with less energy. And then we have building elements that you can reuse. So we look at the life cycle again. So we look at local production, local sourcing of material, reusing the materials in other building, therefore like eliminating all the energy that goes into deconstruction of buildings in the end, and what we have today, like in urban mining and stuff, so it takes a lot of energy. And if we like really follow this through, and actually we're developing tools now for tracking every building part, and also the CO2 emission it does for all of the logistic processes where it goes in the end of the day. So basically all of the buildings become a material bank where people in the future can also invest in, because the prices of these materials will raise in the future. And therefore, if we look at the life cycle, if we look at the construction speed, at the omitting errors in construction, this has a huge impact on the energy in the end of the day, because it takes less energy, because it's easier to produce and there are less errors in there. And therefore it's also more economical in the end of the day. And I think for me, and like personally, this is also like a very good way to go into the future with this. And then of course comes the operational aspect of the building, which is the far higher energy in the end. So when we basically we talk a lot like about designing and construction, but you have to see that this is only maybe 10% of what a building has in CO2 emission and in energy consumption in the life cycle. So we have to think about creating systems that make operations more energy efficient, because this is where you get like the bigger piece of the cake in the end of the day.
So do we have one last question? Oh, two last questions. So if we can make them maybe short, and we'll try to also have some short answers.
Ja mam szybkie pytanie do pani Marty, jako przedstawicielki polskiej pracowni. I w nawiązaniu do tego, co pan Rudi powiedział, zielone dachy, czy akurat na dwóch przykładach FSO czy z Ogrodu Saskiego wasza pracownia myślała o tym? Bo na przykład muzeum pokazało to, że funkcjonujący dach, czy zielony, czy dla ludzi, jest bardzo socjalizujący i znam też inne przykłady, no i to mnie ciekawi.
Tak teraz myślę o projekcie, w którym nie mamy zielonego dachu i chyba nie ma takiego. I think there is no project that we don't have a green roof. Oczywiście of course in FSO there are green roofs. Probably you mentioned the Museum of Polish History, where all the technicalities are below the roof, so you have the 360 view to Warsaw. And of course, we introduced the idea of green roof to Saski Palace reconstruction, but something we need to deal with creativity is that this reconstruction is according to the specustawa, special law. And this special law says that it needs to be, the outer envelope needs to be exactly how it was in 1939. So this is something we need to use our creativity. Yes. Perhaps the idea is I will tell it in Polish because I have no idea how it's in English. Zieleń ruderalna. I'm sure that even in 1939, such trees that grow on small piece of land on the roof happened. So we need to search in historical pictures.
Maybe I should sell you some pocket habitats. Nobody can prevent you to put these bags on a roof. Well, difficult question. Let's talk about that later.
Ja chciałam zadać jedno pytanie, takie troszeczkę z innego elementu, ponieważ interesuje mnie sprawa mobilności budynków jako elementu wielofunkcyjnego, o którym mówił pierwszy rozmówca, i strasznie mnie zaciekawił ten element lotniska w Innsbrucku, który ma mieć różne formy. Czy ta różnorodność jednego budynku to jest coś, co rzeczywiście jest jakąś naszą przyszłością, że możemy wykorzystywać budynek dla narciarzy, dla studentów na różne sposoby, tak nieoczywiste jak lotnisko? Może ze dwa słowa na ten temat, jakbym mogła prosić.
that you can use it for other purposes, other uses, etc.
I'm very sorry, I forgot my earpiece inside. But as I just heard, it's about the Innsbruck terminal building, right?
And flexibility of the function. Yes.
Okay.
Universality
Yeah.
of.
And like actually the design was like it was the birthplace for our Betapod system in the end of the day. So actually this terminal was before we developed kind of the buildings that came afterwards, and that I showed that were like the school building or like the mobility hub. And back then the details were just the detailing was just an idea in our head. This was already like 5 years ago or something like this. And we also, to be honest with you, we also didn't 100% know how it will work. But we kind of knew that we were onto something in the end of the day. And today we can say, like with the new generation of the system, it took now 3 generations to develop something that proved, or like that can stand the competition as well, also from a budgetary reason, but that can also stand kind of the reusable aspects, because all of these elements have to, like, they have a lot of how do you say that in English? Like, because it's like you don't build it in the building once, you know, and then you don't use it again, but you have to disassemble it and assemble it again. So you have to design details that make this possible. Yeah, and we started with timber joints, and like you can see that this will not be possible with that. And now it's more like like a timber steel hybrid construction. So it's kind of like the elements itself are. It's a timber knot, and it is surrounded by a steel cage, but it's kind of like a puzzle for kids, because you can disassemble, you can get the bolts out of the steel cage, and then it falls apart, and then the timber pieces also fall apart, so to say. So you can cleanly dissect all of the material joints. And it took a long time to get this flexibility in the buildings, and now we're I think the best example is the school building I showed, because the school building in 5 years will be a daycare building in a different volume, in a different massing, a 1-story building that is flatter on the ground, and we handed in already the type structural analysis for this already, so we can actually disassemble it and immediately assemble a new building on another place for it, again with only having to have this Aufstellungsgenehmigung, the assembly. Yeah, and because when you do the TÜV certification, you can do multiple configurations of your building in there already, and then you can immediately build them, and it's great. And that's like we're step by step going forward, also with our knowledge in that.
I mean, there is just one thing that I'm often struggling with. The more flexible we want to be, the more we have to build reserve into the components. That means we use more material strength than we actually need when we build it, to be flexible, to do something else with it. And for me, there is always the question, how far do we build flexibility in things which might never be changed, and therefore have unnecessary use of material, and how many of these things will we use so that it's good invested flexibility in material? That's for me the struggle.
It's also like we cannot build every building from this, and there's a limitation in height and in the building class, because at a certain point it becomes, because like for example, simple example, what you're saying, the columns in the bottom, they have higher loads than the columns on top, but the system is everywhere the same in the end of the day. And there's always this negotiation between material efficiency and structure, for example. But I'm actually like a big fan of, I mean, there's this theory of lightweight building in the end of the day, and using as little as possible, but also when you have material that, for example, in these brick bricks you can otherwise not use in construction, you suddenly turn this process around, because you build from wood that normally would be just burned in the end of the day.
Let's have this last question.
May I only ask to that last one that what is most the easiest way is to share buildings. For example, the school needs it in morning hours. Some other users can use it in later hours, right? For example, the local community can use it for a meeting place. And this doesn't need any money. It only needs goodwill and
Good organization.
Good organization, yes.
In the multifunctional quarter, I think there's not only one function in one quarter.
One last question from me. Thank you for your lectures. I think we can all agree that what you present here is not a mainstream mindset, and it's not in a mainstream to think about space and designing this way, right? So my question to you is, do you ever feel fear succession? So do you feel like this is, I don't know, your responsibility to make sure that this mine of know-how that you develop is transferred to younger generations? And if so, why is it your or our responsibility to work with the education system? Because we can all agree that we are not going to be here forever, right? At some point, someone else will take over. And what is your role, in your opinion, in this process? So the next generation would not start from the scratch, but rather take over?
It's not easy, but let's try to be very synthetic.
Maybe I want to answer very short. Our firm owns a foundation, and the foundations actually gives us money to publish the results. Everything we do, everything that is successful, we publish and share it, so that the knowledge is not just used by us, it can be used by our competitors, it can be used by everybody else. And we also want to collaborate with competitors, because we feel that if we bring good people together, and good people are not only in your own company, that would be foolish to think. So collaboration with the best brains brings exactly that dissemination of knowledge, and we need to do that. That's our obligation, because knowledge doesn't belong to us, it belongs to society.
WXCA, we created WXCA as a platform for passionate architects, and as I already told you, we were just after studies when we started together. And even then we believe that the strength is in joining the doświadczenie, experience and this courage of youth. And now I'm middle-aged, but we have, we invited then our professors to collaborate with us, and they stayed with us still. So now I'm middle-aged, and we have younger colleagues in our office. Even some of them are here with us. I know that Kuba Kołomański is here. Thank you for joining. And this is how we develop this continuity. And what I search for is this passion and having fun while finding the solutions for the future. And well, I think if we done good, somebody will follow us later, how we did with Vitruvius.
I have nothing to add there, actually. I can keep it short.
And I would say that probably 4 years ago I wouldn't have said this, but I would say that this starts being mainstream. At least the attitude towards these issues is already, in many architecture studios, design kind of thinking, already mainstream. So, dziękuję, Rudi, Marta, and Marvin. Also to all of you for following, for being here, for making questions. Damien, and also all our JUNG colleagues. Thank you so much for making this possible, for making it possible, Diana, to discuss about the future. And we meet next time. Thank you very much.